The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Big news in the world of vaping and vaping products. The head of the FDA, Scott Gottlieb, made significant progress in preventing the total outlawing, effectively, of almost all vaping-related products. And the e-cigarette industry is an industry that I don't really much care for, but you can make the case that these e-cigarettes are helping some people transition off of regular cigarettes and ideally eventually stop smoking altogether. The e-cigarette industry was sort of preparing itself for almost total destruction, or maybe decimation is a better word, where more than 90% of these vapor products would not have been able to be sold and marketed or even been approved as put forward towards the to the FDA for approval. And this would have been a concern to me, not because it's really important to me that vaping products be available. I actually find the entire thing pretty annoying. Slightly less annoying than cigarettes.
It's like an annoying trend that's going on.
No doubt
now.
about that. But it again would be very unbalanced when cigarettes would still be freely available, but almost all e-cigarettes, which are arguably safer than regular cigarettes, although they're not safe the way everybody says, there's no damage whatsoever. It would be another one of these imbalances, sort of like with marijuana and cigarettes, which we often talk about, which is, what's the argument for marijuana being illegal if cigarettes are legal? That's what doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't mean that smoking stuff is not going to damage your lungs, whether it's marijuana or cigarettes or banana leaves, as I like to say. Putting smoke in your lungs is still bad. The question is more, what is the rationale for cigarettes having this sort of privileged position? And of course, the tobacco industry's power is a big part of this. And the new plan from the FDA is going to allow for some more products to be approved, and it's basically not going to, quote, shut the whole thing down, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a freedom argument to be had when we talk about tobacco legalization, or there's also, a black market argument that we can go into as well.
Yep.
But if we're going to have those and we accept the fact that they've been around for hundreds of years and that people are going to be continually addicted to cigarettes and need alternatives if they do choose to make the right decision for their health and get off of them. I mean, we have things like nicotine patches, we have nicotine gum, and we have these vapor options. And apparently the vapor is 95% safer than cigarettes themselves. So yes. I think for that reason alone,
data
we should argue
from
for
the
keeping
vaping
them
industry.
around.
The vaping industry says it's 95% safer. Some of the other concerns are that there are like some flavors of vape juice that appeal directly to kids, and I don't know if that's true. Like, adults might want vanilla or bubble gum, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
It's like going after pot brownies, and
because brown or alcohol that looks like juices or something like that. I don't know. I don't really find those arguments particularly compelling. But we will, I guess, not see a total and complete shutdown, to borrow a phrase from the president, of vaping and vaping-related items. We are seeing now that just about every public place that doesn't allow cigarettes is coming out and saying no vaping or e-cigs or anything like that. Like, for a while, there was the idea that because it's not smoke, it's vapor, that you can just use it indoors, wherever. Of course, sometimes when people are using these devices, the amount of vapor that is being released on every single breath is like a cloud that it would fill like our entire studio. It's acutely more annoying than cigarettes in terms of like creating a cloud. Obviously, the smell is not as bad and it's not as damaging to people's health.
Oh, you shouldn't be able to do it inside or even at those like outdoor venues, like a baseball game or something. But just walking around, whenever I like smell a puff of smoke from a cigarette, I always want to like not breathe for a second until I walk by it. But vapor, I mean, it's usually kind of a pleasant smell, I think, especially if it's flavored.
There's a guy who lives like 2 buildings down from me in Boston, and it's very common that when I'm walking home from the subway, he'll be standing outside, and one day it's bubble gum and another day it's blueberry or whatever the case may be. Wow. And it's a combination of annoying and interesting. It's sort of like the fake blueberry smell of like Starburst, like the chewy candies, it's basically that equivalent of flavor.
Do you ever talk to those people who are like, oh, I don't even smoke anymore, I just vape?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense because Vaping is healthier because you're not heating up the product at the same temperature that you would for smoking. Like you're not actually combusting it.
That's,
you're
I guess,
just
the argument.
Reaching it to it. I don't know if it's like heating point or what you call it.
It
but
starts
much
to
better.
become vapor. Yeah. I don't even care enough about it to look into it that deeply. But anyway, if you are a vaping fan, you will not be experiencing that shutdown on all vaping products upcoming. Okay. Peanut butter, not only a staple of the vegan diet, but something that you can actually break out of prison with. A dozen inmates escaped, actually jail, an Alabama jail, not a prison. They didn't do anything like out of Shawshank Redemption. There were no power tools. They didn't.
Shawshank Redemption, he did it with like a spoon, right?
They did it with
over
a
the course
spoon,
of like
that's
a
true.
decade.
They used peanut butter. Apparently, what the inmates did is they used peanut butter to change the numbers on one of the cell doors to make it look like the number on a door leading to the outside of the jail. And an inmate asked an unsuspecting jail guard who controlled the doors to open his cell, saying, I need to get back in. It turned out, unknown to the guard, that door actually opened to the outside. And then 12 inmates were able to basically just walk out. I mean, it's a very strange story.
And 11 were caught, but I guess one guy is still at large. I mean, that's pretty resourceful. These inmates have a lot of time to think, and some of them think about escaping. That's pretty clever, honestly.
And for people who heard me say it leads to the outside, it doesn't lead out to freedom. They still then had to use blankets to cover and climb over razor wire fence, which surrounds the jail. And then a few of them rode in a truck, and some of them ran in different directions. But as Pat said, 11 of them have since been recaptured and are back in custody. And one person, Brady Kilpatrick, who was in jail on drug possession charges, he's still at large. I wouldn't assume that you could break out of jail with peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yogurt, sure, but peanut butter would not. I would not assume that.
Apparently, this jail guard was new on the job, so I guess maybe he didn't really have a good understanding of the layout of the jail there, and obviously knowing, well, this is the door that leads outside. I should know that. I mean, human error is going to factor into this. People are going to escape out of jail and prison every now and then,
and this is why there's usually multiple layers. Like in other words, the door didn't lead directly outside. You still had to climb the razor wire fence, but of course the inmates were prepared for that, and they were able to deal with that. But a very, very bizarre story. So it's been about a week since Politicon, which is this political conference, I guess that's what it stands for, in California. And there were a bunch of somewhat publicized debates. And there was one that's getting a lot of attention, and I want to comment on it briefly, which is progressive comedian Chelsea Handler debated conservative, I guess, commentator.
Firebrand.
Tomi Lahren. Tomi Lahren. I never know how to pronounce the name. It doesn't. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, okay? And one of the biggest controversial elements that has come from this is that while Ms. Lahren has been advocating aggressively against the Affordable Care Act, she admitted during the debate that being under 26 years old, she is still on her parents' insurance as a result of the Affordable Care Act. Now, that actually depends on what state you live in, because Massachusetts has had the be on your parents' plan until you're 26 under Romney Care predating the Affordable Care Act. So if you live in Massachusetts, you wouldn't be able to do that because of Obamacare. You'd be able to do it because of Massachusetts' own law. But presumably, I don't know what state she has residency in. She's
from South Dakota.
She's from South Dakota. Okay, I don't know where she's insured, but she's able to do this. And a lot of people are just blasting her, saying she's a total hypocrite, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, she is a hypocrite, but I actually don't find this as shocking as some people are making it out to be. And the analogy I think of is when politicians who believe that there should be higher taxes on the rich or people earning above whatever amount of money, you will often hear from the right, well, why don't they just choose to pay more taxes? That's kind of a stupid argument, I think.
Yeah.
If the system doesn't dictate that that's what everybody does, it's not hypocritical to say, I am going to live within the system and pay the taxes that are due based on my income, or use whatever provisions are available for myself as someone maybe who's under 26 or something like that. I actually don't think that that's really something to really blow up about. If one person says, I think there should be higher taxes on the rich, but I'm not going to go out of my way and just send extra money to the IRS, I don't think that that's a problem.
So you do or you don't think that she's a hypocrite? Because it sounds like you're voicing both sides there.
She is a hypocrite.
You think so?
I just don't think this is the biggest criticism of Tomi Lahren or Tomi Lahren or whatever her name is. a lot of people do this, and it applies to many political issues. And I just don't think it's that strong of a criticism.
You used one on the left where, you know, a liberal who supports higher tax rates isn't just going to volunteer more money to the government.
Sure.
To use another Obamacare-related example, it's like the Republican governors who accepted the Medicaid expansion because they knew that this is a system that they were going to be under. Even though they are against Obamacare in principle, they realize that it's the law of the land and it's going to help out my constituents. It's going to help people in other states too. I might as well take it.
Yeah, I just don't know that this is, it's a very easy criticism to make. And I think that, hey, she was honest. She admitted that this is the situation. You can say, I am doing this, but I do believe that as a policy, it should be changed. I disagree. Like, I disagree with her on the policy, but am I really, is the focus going to be that she's getting health care under her parents?
And I think the other out for her here is, too, that she says that she disagrees with Obamacare overall, but agrees with some of the specific provisions.
Yeah, well,
as
that's
if there's something in Obamacare that she likes. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she goes with the pre-existing condition provision, and she says that she likes, you know, being able to stay on your parents' health care until you're 26, which is, you know, rather convenient.
Yeah.
But obviously, those are the things that kind of make the system work when you add in like the individual mandate and all that stuff.
That's
like,
not actually
you can't
surprising.
just be against that stuff and for all the good things in Obamacare.
And a lot of people are. In other words, when you poll people on the individual provisions, most of those provisions are pretty damn popular, except for, oh, well, everybody has to have insurance or pay a fine, and there's this tax on high blah, blah, blah,
the
blah,
things
blah.
that pay for the good things.
That's how you pay for it. You
Yeah.
can't just, people say there's no free lunch. That's true, so don't try to get one. The same people who argue there's no such thing as a free lunch want to get a free lunch. They want all the good things Obamacare does without the provisions that are in place to pay for it. So yeah, she's a hypocrite. She's a hypocrite on many issues, but I think
I don't know if she's a hypocrite on this. And you know, even if she was, people are complex. I guess you can always.
There's always that's both. People on the left and right use that a lot. Like Milo Yiannopoulos would famously use that one.
When he talks about religion, he's just like completely inconsistent on, you know, this critical thinking mantra that he uses for everything else.
Right.
But when he comes to religion, he just blindly accepts it. And when you call him out on that hypocrisy, he just says, well, you know, people are complex.
People are complex and messy is very, very true. And yet it has become one of those let's agree to disagree type of things that it's more or less devoid of meaning in most situations. But I like it. I don't mind people are complex and messy as much as I mind let's agree to disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, that's it for today. That's it for this week. Welcome to all of our new members. Next week, the last full week of the show before summer vacation. Are we going to hear next week about your plans? Are they continuing to develop?
I'll have to tell you about them next week because they're not completely finalized.
They're not.
You know, in the spirit of a road trip, I could change my mind when I'm out in South Dakota and change course completely.
But the trip is happening,
The trip is happening.
Okay, all right, because I was starting to get worried that Pat was going to back out on the entire thing and deprive us of endless good stories upon our return.
There will be stories.
All right, that's it for today. Talk to you next week.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.